Hey guys, this is Jakob. I'm content manager and I'm helping small and medium enterprises with their content strategy. In my podcast, Content Marketing Mastery, I'm interviewing people who create great content. And today I have a special guest. It is Brian Kurtz. Welcome, Brian. How are you?
Thank you, Jakob. Very, very pleased to be here. I like spreading my message internationally
Yeah.
whenever I can.
That's exactly what we were doing. So I listened to many podcasts and I'm very excited to speak with you today because I think you're the master of copywriting. So we will speak about this in just a second, and we will also speak about your book, Overdeliver, which is a fantastic title in my opinion. So, but before we dive deep into the topic of copy and direct marketing, can you introduce yourself? So who are you and what is your personal passion?
Yeah, so I don't see myself as a copywriter
Okay.
because I grew up in direct mail in the 1980s. I'm a lot older than I look, I guess. But in the 1980s, a copywriter to me was someone who would write a package, like a direct mail package, soup to nuts, like beginning to end.
Yeah.
And I never did that. And I don't write video sales letters. I don't write um, online email letters. However, I think the reason why I'm kind of like a, a behind the scenes copywriter is because I write a weekly blog
Mm-hmm.
that will hopefully people after this podcast will get on my list. They'll become part of my online family, and then they become and I don't really sell a lot in there. But when you're not selling and you're delivering content like I do, all of a sudden people think you're a copywriter. And
Mm.
so what I am is a writer. I mean, I know how to write. I know how to, get a story out. I know that's how I did my book. So I guess it's not a confusing thing that when I say I'm not a copywriter, because then I've done blog posts and I say I'm a copywriter wannabe, and then people like lay into me. They start yelling at me in email.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? You're a copywriter. You write all this stuff, and then you sell one of your books, which is all educational material. But I do it, and why I wanted to come on your show is the idea of content marketing. It's still marketing. It's still
Mm-hmm.
selling, but you do it in a different way. I call it fishing without bait. And
Mm-hmm.
fishing without bait is a concept Dean Jackson, who's a great marketer, told me. And so, imagine you're sitting on a lake and you throw, and the fish are in the water. That's your prospects, your list.
Yes.
And so you're in a lake and you just throw out your fishing rod and your hook with nice bait. And then a fish gets on the hook. You bring him into your boat and you get him into a funnel, or you get him into a sales, you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is I don't fish with bait. I fish with a spotlight. So I'm shining a spotlight on the lake, which is exactly what you talk about when you talk about content marketing.
Yes.
And so the spotlight is on the lake. And if fish want to jump in my boat, they can. If fish want to just look at the light and absorb my content, that's
Enjoy
fine
it.
too. What's
Yeah.
that?
Enjoy it. Enjoy
Enjoy
the
it,
content.
right?
Yes.
And I call them. I had a blog post last week. I called them my VIP freeloaders, and I don't mean
Mhm.
freeloaders in a negative way. They just, they're not buying anything. But then again, the fact that I've had people on my list or my online family for 3 years, and then they buy something, tells me that some people are just slow buyers, or they're
Yes.
and because I'm not an aggressive seller, um, you know, that would be my downside. But my upside is when they finally do buy, they're going to be more loyal, and they're going to stay with me longer once they make the plunge, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So so I'm not really a copywriter, but I write copy. And so what I've done, quickly to introduce myself, I ran a company, Boardroom Inc., for 34 years. I didn't run it for all 34 years, but the last 20, I ran all the marketing. And so I have a lot of experience in direct mail and email and online and, TV, radio, all of that. And so when I left Boardroom, I decided to launch this company called Titans Marketing, which is a direct marketing educational company. And just in case anybody doesn't know what direct marketing is versus marketing, direct marketing means that you have a measurable ROI for every piece of media you spend. Even if you say it's free, like, email is almost free.
Yes.
Maybe SEO, organic search is kind of free. But you know what? I think everything has a price because it's an opportunity cost. It's something that you spend time on.
Yes.
And so anything that you do has to pay out eventually. So I'm saying that as the guy who, shines a spotlight as opposed to putting a pole and a rod and bait in the water. But,
Yes.
I prefer that method because it's what people know me for. It's congruent with who I am. And I don't begrudge anybody who is doing the fishing with bait. It's a fine way to do it.
Yes.
They probably have some content that they're giving away or something with that bait. So there is content there. But, I think I would also call it patient marketing, not just content marketing. I think you have to be more patient. And in my book, Overdeliver, I talk about, my years at Boardroom. We had newsletter subscriptions. And in a newsletter subscription, if you try to make money in the first year in direct mail, you're not going to be in business because you're going to lose money on that first subscription. But if you do it right, you'll make the money back after you cross-sell them other products during the first year, and then they renew. And the renewal was the key component. I talk about that in the book. So that I'm always breaking even after year two. And some people don't want to wait that long. And that's why I call it patient marketing. So you can actually target when you're going to make an ROI, a return on investment, or a profit on a new customer. But I think the thing that I always talk about, no matter how you do it, that first promotion, that first, like, going out even to cold traffic, to people who don't know you and don't like you yet and don't trust you yet, even with that promotion, you have to have the second order in mind. You have to think about what you're going to do with them once you have them. And, you can be aggressive, you can be not aggressive, or something in between. And that's up to the marketer. I choose to play the long game. And that's the subtitle of my book, Overdeliver, which is play the long game in direct response marketing. So, for the long haul. So that was a long introduction, but I didn't want to just talk about, what I did and who I am. I'd rather just talk about, what I'm doing, now. If you want to ask me any other questions, I can answer them.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you first of all. So I think it's very important to have this, to think long term. So, and that's something that many people miss, in my opinion, especially when it comes to content marketing. They think, okay, we do this for 1 month and then we have the return on investment. But it's a long-term game, and you have to put all your energy into it. I think this is very important.
Yeah, there was a copywriter. He has a newsletter, and he recently said, the best way to build your list. And he talked about, you can do joint ventures to build your list. You can go on podcasts. I'm building my list. Hopefully some people will go on my list and become part of my online family from this podcast. He said you can do live events. And he said he had like 4 things. And then he said, I tried doing a blog and it was just too much work. And I couldn't, it wasn't a list builder. And I thought about that. And I this guy's really smart. He's a good friend. But I disagree with that, because I believe that the blog, or at least a weekly, if not more often, communication with your online family, with your list. And email is what I'm talking about. Email is the kind of the killer app right now. I mean, everything revolves around Facebook and Instagram and, and search, and they're all important. But to me, having an audience that you can write to on a regular basis, whether it's just an email or a blog or something, is probably the most important thing of not only getting people onto your list, but also, and that, so I go on Facebook, and they post my blogs on Facebook. I have a guy who does that for me. And, you know, I get names onto my list because they read one of my blogs on Facebook. But then the people who are already on my list are getting my blog. So how is that building my list? Well, it's building it stronger and better because they see what I do, even though I always sell in the PS. And if I sell in the PS, I don't do affiliates. That's just my choice. I think affiliates are fine. I don't do affiliates, but I do a PS that sells something of value in terms of direct marketing education. Like I sell Breakthrough Advertising, which is a book by Gene Schwartz, a classic book, which I have the rights to. I sell swipe files from great copywriters. I sell my mastermind. I have a low-end mastermind, Titans Accelerator. I sell that. So it's all related to my business, but the copy in the blog itself is all content. It's, you know, I have like sideways selling in terms of there. Like I'll do the blog and I'll say, oh, and in my book Overdeliver, and I'll give you a live link to Overdeliver if you want to buy my book, which is a good deal. I'll talk about that later, where you get all these bonuses, which you've now like gotten into those. But I think that the so anyway, it's just my philosophy. I'm not saying I'm probably leaving money on the table by doing it this way. But
you're building long-term relationships with the people who become more interested in your work, I think.
That's the goal. And because I'm not money hungry, and I guess some people need money short term because they have to pay the bills. Unfortunately, I'm in a position, I've had a long career. I don't need to make the money today. I'd like to make some money tomorrow or the next day. If I don't, it's okay. So with that attitude, why should I be an aggressive seller when I can do it this way and have long-term relationships? And my attitude is, you know, for someone who's as old as I am and say life is long, life is not short. I have that philosophy that, you know, I am looking long-term. I'm looking at, you know, the kind of person that I want. You know, people who say I have 100,000 names on my list, I'd like to know how they got them. And, you know, are they good names? What's their open rate? You know, I get, you know, on any weekly blog, I get anywhere from, you know, 33% to 38% open rates.
That's good.
And then with the reopens, I get close to 50% open rate. So it's a different philosophy, but it is content marketing if that's one of the definitions that you have. And so I find it very rewarding to do it that way.
So let's dive a little bit deeper. When you create your newsletter or your blog post, what is it something that you sit down and you write basically what you want to send, or is it something, do you have a brainstorming method? Because one question that oftentimes comes is what to write about, what should I include into my content piece? So do you have a structure that you can teach people?
Well, I don't have a structure because, you know, one thing that's useful is that I have 40 years of experience, so I have a lot of stories and I paid attention to what I did. But I think even if you don't have 40 years, you have your experiences. And I always say that, you know, you got to do, Dan Kennedy told me this, you want to do marketing by walking around. And so you got to walk around on the outside, and that could be through Zoom. You know, COVID, you know, has caused some issues. So you can do it through Zoom, definitely, because you got to be able to talk to people, meet people, interact with people. And then, you know, you want to be able to, I mean, Gary Halbert, who's one of the great copywriters of all time, would get people who would work under him for a year, and he would send them out. He goes, go to Walmart and walk around and see the people, because we're writing to that audience, you know, for this particular project. And so you want to look at your audience, you want to feel them, you not touch them, but you want to feel them. You want to feel what they're about. And so that's one way. But I did one of my blog posts was a three-way interview kind of with Perry Marshall and John Carlton. Perry's a world-class marketer. He writes a bit too. Carlton is a world-class copywriter. And it was about rants, R-A-N-T, rant. And so, you know, John rants and Perry rants. And I said, what do you want me on this for? And they said, well, we all rant. you just rant in your own style. And so John will say, "You idiot, how could you do that?" Ben Settle is good at that. He rants a lot also in his emails. So we did this interview, and at the end of the interview, I realized that I rant in my own way. So the idea is to come up in your mind with something that there's a I don't know, an injustice in the world, that in marketing, or an injustice that you want to call out. And then you get into that. That's one way to brainstorm if you're kind of stuck. But after that interview, I don't even know sometimes when I get up on Friday morning. And another tip is that you really have to block out time. And I block out the same time every week. So Friday, I have no calls, no appointments, no nothing. And on Friday morning, I get up. I specifically get my special mug for coffee. It's a David Ogilvy, Gene Schwartz mug. I take it downstairs. Sometimes I know what I'm going to do. I have an idea because I've been thinking about it during the week, or something happened during the week. But then sometimes I go downstairs. I'm sitting here, Friday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's like, okay, what am I going to write about? Now I always throw out, anytime I have an idea for a possible blog post, I either save it onto my hard drive under blog posts, or I write a little note because I know what the idea is, and I put it in a clip, and then I have this clip. So I sometimes just take out this clip. I have it, and this is useful for for anything you do. But these are possible blog posts. So it's clipped. It's all possible ideas, and I go through it sometimes. If I'm in the mood, and what happens is as soon as you fill your head up with a lot of possibilities.
Yes.
And then I get a title. I put a title on the top of the page. It's a blank page in Word, a title, and I start writing. And very rarely do I write and stop. Usually that's my blog post. Sometimes because the thing is, John Carlton says, once you have an inkling of an idea of what you want to write about, and you get a title down and you start writing, he says in most cases, and in his case more than me, because he's a real copywriter, he says you're off to the races. He says, because you're on a path to write something. So I guess to answer your question, I think you have to have. I suggest that you have the same time every week that you're going to write it. So it's got to be blocked out time, nothing else. But I'm writing my blog. Now I'll write for a while, and then I'll take a break, check my email, just to get my head out of it. Then I come back, and I'm on fire usually, because I'm rewriting, and then I'm honing the blog post. And of course, you see it you've seen them, so they're still not perfect when they go out, but at least they're honed to some extent. And so having time, walk around all the time, get ideas. Even if it's not an idea for this week, it could be an idea for next week or next month or even next year. And have some, think about what's happening in the world, what's happening on the calendar. With COVID, my attitude on COVID is you didn't want to do a COVID, you don't want to do COVID-centric blogs, but you also can't be tone deaf to what's going on.
Yes.
So I got a lot of topics, the fact that people were, kind of cooped up, and I use that to my advantage of how to use a swipe file. Now's a good time to do, to find your best 5 books and whatever. So there are things happening in the world that you can also attract. But I think the most important thing would be the two things would be, be mindful when you allot some time, writing time. And then also just when you're out in the world, shopping, at dinner, anything, just be aware of what's going on around you. It's so interesting that John Carlton said that. It's just being mindful of what's happening. It's just, it's amazing. There are ideas everywhere. I mean, anything is a blog post basically, but some are more interesting to you than they are to your audience, and that's dangerous. But you try to, and then one thing I make a mistake of is that I use a lot of I's instead of U's in my blog, because it's a lot of my story. And whenever I see that also, you want to try transfer it as much as you can to you, the audience. So if I'm telling a story of something that happened to me, I try to figure out how does that apply to them, and always be other directed also when you're writing. I'm not that great at it, but when I think about it, I do change gears. So those are some ways. I mean, there's no way to, you got to have ideas to write about stuff. And, but it's not so tough to find ideas.
So I think the same, but many clients come to me and say, well, I don't know what to produce. And I always say there are a million ideas. The problem is the time. So to bring everything on paper, that's the
Well, the thing
struggle.
is also one thing that's important that helped me a lot is that I realized a long time ago that I never invented anything. Like I didn't invent anything new. So if you give yourself that break, you don't have to invent something every week. You just have to bring something to light in your own words, in your own story. And so like in my book, for instance, I have a chapter on list building, and I talk about RFM, which is a technique that, most direct marketers have used for a long time. It's recency, frequency, monetary value. Now, if you know what it is, I'm not telling anything new. If you know what it is, but you're not sure, like you never really dive deep into it, and I explain it the way I explain it, and you get it after I explain it, then I become the messenger for that. And you start liking me and you trust me only because I brought something to light that was invented a long time ago.
Yes.
My story and my angle on it, you picked up on it. That's the way to use, content to really build a relationship that lasts a lifetime. Because, people will say, Brian, I get emails that say, Brian, never met him before. Brian, you're my mentor. I said, wow, that's amazing. I say, that's amazing. I mean, when I was growing up, my mentors, I had to meet them and be with them and understand them. And the fact that someone could say that, one person could say that, and many people say it, just because they read my stuff, I'm a mentor to them. And if you get to that point, that's the most rewarding thing, I got to tell you. Then your writing is at least penetrating, it's not penetrating everybody on the list, but it's penetrating enough people to really be making a difference. And again, it's not stuff I invented. It's just that I took something, and I say it all the time because I don't want people to think that I think I invented this. It's like when I get a quote, and I always go to Google and I say, who said this? And sometimes I find that no one said it the way I said it. And I said, I can't give credit to this quote. I'm taking credit for it, but if anybody knows who took it, I'll give them credit. The idea of standing on the shoulders of other people is much better, and giving people credit is way better than taking credit for something that you didn't invent. Because I don't think there's that much that's being invented today. It's more how you rework. And so if I have a superpower, I think it's just connecting the dots on a lot of different ideas, bringing it forward, and then being the messenger for those ideas, and that someone is going to have an aha moment that they haven't had before. And if you can do that with your content, that's all you want to do. And I think people that are writing to you that are saying, I can't get started. I get writer's block. I can't write anything. Basically, I think those people are thinking that it has to be so original.
Yeah. And the benchmark is too high, maybe.
Yeah. Absolutely. You have to like basically say, look, I might just be repeating something that I heard.
Yes.
And I do that all the time. It's really interesting. And then I try to write it in a style that's entertaining in some way.
There's a quote from Banksy, this famous artist, who said, great artists, they invent themselves, and the best artists, they copy. They just they copy the most. So
yeah, I think that I always say that one of my quotes is stealing is a felony, but stealing smart is an art. And it's like know the rules like a pro and break them like an artist. That's Picasso.
Yes.
So I don't really think copying. I mean, I think when you're as a copywriter, if I was training to be a world-class copywriter, I'd be copying other people's great promotions in email and direct mail, and you copy them word for word. They say that, your thumb and index finger connect to your brain much better than a keyboard. So you write out, you copy the package. Now, it's not that you're going to mail it. It's not that you're going to send it out, but by writing great copy, it really trains you over time. Gary Halbert did this with all of his copy cubs. He had them write out the best packages, like world-class copywriters that he's trained started like that. And it still goes on. It's very important. I had one guy on my list, a young copywriter, when I told that story about Halbert, and I sold him a copy of Breakthrough Advertising, which is probably the best book on copywriting and marketing, but it's really a book about human behavior. Gene Schwartz wrote it in 1966. It's 100% relevant today. It's all about the states of awareness in the marketplace and how you write to different states of awareness, that the copywriter is not creating desire. The desire is already there. You just have to capture it. It's an amazing, amazing book. Yeah. So he bought Breakthrough Advertising, and he on his own, he said, why not copy? And I said, read the first 3 chapters of Breakthrough Advertising multiple times before you go on to the rest of the book. And so he took that plus the idea of copying great promotions. He copied the first 3 chapters of Breakthrough Advertising, like word for word on legal paper, then put it in an envelope and mailed it to me.
Just to prove it. I did your homework.
Right. And I thought it was, I hadn't thought about copying, great stuff from books, but it's the same thing, it's the repetition. It's knowing, like if I was writing this package, I'd be writing a great package. If I was writing this book, I'd be writing a great book. It's not mine. I'm not selling it. I'm not plagiarizing it, but it gets it into your head. And, he probably was just trying to brown nose me a little bit, but I said, I applauded him for it.
And you think it's really something magic happening when I take this pen and write it into my, it's not enough to write it on my laptop?
Well, when I'm at a seminar or I'm at a workshop or anything like that, I always take my notes, and I'm old fashioned, I'm old school, but, and I'm on a keyboard all day. But I'm very, very conscious of writing notes as opposed to typing them. It makes a big difference. And then, you have to go back through them. You can't, you can't file them right away like you can on a computer in categories. But I maintain that you don't go back to them either way. So if you're writing them and you can just, after you go through it, you just reread it and just highlight the key things, even just writing it and then highlighting it without even taking it and putting it somewhere else, unless it's a blog idea or something you want to transfer, it still gets into your brain, and it gets into your brain much deeper, in my opinion.
Yes. So I'm also working all day on the laptop, but I am also old-fashioned. So I'm writing also my goals down, so on paper. This is also something that I do together with my wife. So I believe there is something magic happening when you do this. So
it is.
But that's,
it is. It really is. And I just think that when you're really doing deep thinking, I mean, I will say when I'm doing my blog on Fridays, I do it at the keyboard, because then I'm just free thinking at that point. And then you can make changes as you go, and it's easier to edit. So I'm not going to write it and then type it. That I won't do. But if I'm writing someone else's ideas and I want to try to get it into my brain, I would much rather write it than type it.
Yes. Cool. Like it. So you already mentioned this idea of list building. So it is important to build your list, and you mentioned this RFM method. Can we speak a little bit about this? So what are the 3 things that you need in order to create your list?
Well, the 2 different topics, but list building is basically, I want to build quality as opposed to quantity. So to build quality, like after a podcast, I might get 2 people to opt into my list. I might get 30. Doesn't matter. Those 2 are just as good as those 30, just because the 2 could be, more targeted, better, whatever. So I'm a big fan of basically on the ground list building. And so that's why, if I'm speaking at an event, I won't, I don't sell at an event usually, or I never really sell outright. But if I'm at an event, I just want people to go on my list, because if they're on my list, they're going to get to know me better. They're going to, you're not going to get to know somebody just with one speech from a stage. You're not going to get to know somebody completely, even on a podcast. One thing I do sometimes, if I have someone who has a list that I think has an audience that would be interested in my stuff, and I have an audience that's interested in their stuff, we just do an email swap. Get on his list, get on her list. It's just a great place to be, and they do the same, and I get really quality people that way. That's my affiliate. That's the only affiliates I do, basically. They're not really affiliates. They're just like, email swaps. And that's the best way to build your list, because you can build it. Look, if you do a launch, for example,
yes,
and you warm up to do a launch, you can get a lot of people to opt in for something good. You give them good content. Those are good names. But a lot of people, are just going after a freebie or going after, but if they're really interested in your content, that's what you really want. You really want people who are gonna, be with you for a while on your list. They're not gonna see they see your name in their inbox, email inbox, and they're gonna say, screw that, I got to delete
again this guy.
Exactly. And also, frequency. Ben Settle, believes in daily emails, and he's powerful with it. I believe once a week is fine. When I do a launch, I'll do more than one in a week because I'm selling something, but I do that only twice a year. And basically I'm once a week, but it's the same time. That's the other thing, be consistent. You got to be congruent and consistent. So that's that. Now, RFM is just a way to segment your list. It's the ultimate way to segment your list. And it's based on transactions. It's based on how people buy, what they buy, and how much they spend. So RFM it's not even a direct marketing rule of thumb. It's kind of like a human behavior rule of thumb. It's how people behave in the marketplace. So recency says that, if someone bought more recently than not more recently, they're going to be worth more to you, and they have a bigger propensity to buy. That was something that I didn't understand when I got into the business. I said, well, if they just bought, they're going to be like, they just spent money. They're not going to spend more, but they do, as we all know, with upsells and cross sells. So that's recency.
Okay.
Recency alone can be very powerful, but if you combine it with frequency, now you have someone who is a multi-buyer. They bought more than once, and they also bought recently. So someone who bought 6 months ago and then bought again last week is way more valuable than just the person who bought 6 months ago, and they're more valuable than the person who just bought last week also. And so those names will always rise to the top if you're doing a model on your list. And I'm not going to go into how we did list modeling in direct mail, but we did very powerful regression modeling, which is not a lookalike model. And I'm not going to differentiate those. I'm getting too complicated here. But what I'm saying is that you want to know how they bought. So it's recency and frequency, and then the total amount of money that they've spent with you. You put those three things together, the most recent, the most frequent, and the most money will almost always rise to the top of the people that have the highest propensity to buy again. And so just knowing that is really valuable. And I go into it much deeper in my book, but it's so valuable. And then with email, there's another component which I call RFT. And so, because a lot of people don't spend money with you, but if they're spending time with you, T is for time. So now you got recency, frequency, and time. So someone who is opening your emails every week, not buying yet, but they're frequent, and they might, and also if they respond to you. So if they respond to you, they haven't spent any money, but now you get into an interaction with them.
Yes.
That's going to lead to a sale eventually. Maybe not with everybody, but generally, and you can tell by the way they respond to you, how sophisticated they are, what you think they might like that you have to offer. Hopefully you have multiple offers. So RFM becoming RFT is very, very important. If you can get somebody to spend time with you, it's like, it is like money in the bank. To get money in the bank, though, you still have to work at it. You still have to, go deep with them. You still have to, they still have to know, like, and trust you before they're going to buy.
Yes.
And, look, the internet, when it came about, it was like no one's making money. Remember that? Years ago. No one makes money on the internet except porn, And so, I mean, that was a crazy way to look at it, because look at what's happening today. I mean, e-commerce is just through the roof.
Yes.
And I kind of knew that was going to happen. I didn't predict it. It was obvious to me. But it's that, it was just people had to get used to the medium, whatever the medium you're selling in,
Yes.
whether it's an online catalog, email, search, display advertising, whatever it was. And, that's the best way to get people, kind of in your world. I mean,
Yes.
the people that I think, I watch retail companies, and they just throw out email, like, with the same discounts, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, at some point, if a broken clock is right twice a day kind of thing. So, at some point you'll hit them when they want to buy something. I just think that's kind of, crappy marketing. But
yeah, it's not a good investment. It's I would just more personalize it, or just add stories or something
right.
that makes it warmer. So, because a coupon is just something dead,
Right.
and then people
thing.
open it.
What's another 20% discount? I mean,
yeah.
But I think they have so much money to burn to get you to just buy. They just throw everything out, and they eventually get buyers, and they don't even track it. So
yes. So I think email is underestimated in these days. So I also get, when I send my newsletter and I get a communication, sometimes they think, well, that's not what I think. There's a conversation, and this is very valuable, because I learned another opinion, and I included this also into my podcast. I made an own episode about the things that they thought about. So,
well, and going back to writing, how do you write? I've done what I do in my blog. I often ask them a question specifically, watch this 10-minute video and let me know if you disagree with any of these things. And then if I get a lot of disagreement, now I have another blog post. So I just did that with, I think I asked them, it was about us. The title was Surviving Your Library. And it was about the concept that a slow reader is a better writer. And I said, do you agree with this? I'm not saying, I think I agree with it, but I wish I was a fast reader, so I'd read more. But if I'm a slow reader, am I a better writer? And I got tons of responses. I basically took all the responses, I cut and pasted them. They're sitting in a file in Word, and I'm going to do a blog post about, what my online family thought of the premise, and I'll give all their opinions. It's interesting, but you have to ask questions.
Yes,
you have to ask this one question, and it's got to compel them. And then, it's interesting when, buying behavior. So it's buying behavior will determine future buying behavior. Response behavior to a question, to anything that you send them, will give you an indication of future responses. So I'm developing, and the thing is, I make sure that, these people send me something off my blog. They send me an email, and when I respond to them, a lot of them say, is this Brian Kurtz? Like, are you responding to me?
They can't believe it. Oh my God.
Yeah, they think it's an autoresponder. I respond to every single, I don't have a big list, and I don't get that. I get sometimes 20 responses to a blog post. Over the week, the next week, I'll respond to every single one of them.
Yeah. And that's really value. And I like this idea of a family. So it's I think you said online family, or
online family is my email.
Your online families. You never saw these people. They are on your list, and you have a conversation, and you treat them like family. So you give them value. That's the key thing about content marketing, that you bring value, that you deliver first, that you help them, and that's just great.
Yeah, I have a thing. It's not in my book, because I came up with, I borrowed, this was something I borrowed from Dan Sullivan, who's the best coach for entrepreneurs in the world. And but but I put a lot of different spins on it, and it's basically the 5 ways you get paid, and the 5th is money. So what are the other 4?
Okay.
The first one is, and you'll love this because it ties into content. So the first thing you do, you utilize me. I give you stuff that I learned, I know, you utilize me. The second, I enhance you. I give you stuff that'll enhance you. Maybe even a free something or other, a free interview, a free PDF of something. The third thing is I appreciate you. By calling you my family, I'm appreciating you. I'm not just calling you my list. The fourth thing is I refer you first. I can't refer everybody, but if you're the first, this is from Robert Cialdini's influence book. The first principle of ethical influence is reciprocation.
Yes.
And it's
very powerful.
It's you, then me, then you, then me. But be the first to refer. Be the first to give services. Be the first to give information. So if you do those 4 things, utilize, enhance, appreciate, and refer, you're golden. If you don't make money doing that on a regular basis, you're not doing it right, in my opinion.
Yes, very powerful. Like it. So what advice would you give to an entrepreneur who is just starting out, maybe has no list and doesn't know this idea of direct marketing and is new, but he wants to get results within maybe 18 months or 2 years? What advice would you give this entrepreneur?
Well, I would want to assess their assets first, because an entrepreneur with nothing, it's not an entrepreneur with nothing. He's got something. So he wants to be an entrepreneur because he's got something. And when I say something, he has a list, or she has a list. Even if it's not in an email format, they have Facebook followers, they have Instagram followers, they have people in their old Rolodex or their contact list. And so the first thing I would do is, you always want to go out to people that at least know you, or they might like you, with an idea, with something that you go out and you like. It's like a survey, but you go out and you say, I'm thinking of doing this, or or you start a blog post today, and you have, even if it's 100 people, I'm starting this blog post today. I'm going to, but then make a commitment to it. And then once you have that, I think that you also want to think about, who's in the marketplace that has an audience that is going to be the audience you want to go after, without being like directly competitive, because you don't have a list yet. But you want someone to basically be an affiliate or do a swap. And, I'm not a big fan of affiliates, but it's a legitimate way to do business, obviously. A lot of people make a lot of money doing it. And I would say doing an affiliate with somebody, or at least an email swap with somebody, could be really powerful, when you basically say to them, here's my stuff that I'm going to be doing. I'm just starting out. When I get a list, I'll make sure I promote you to my list. I mean, if you got to know the person probably, or at least, go in, and it's kind of like an ask from nowhere. You're asking somebody, but if it's somebody it's not outrageous to, make a request like that. So there's a way to do it with affiliates. I also think that, cheap media can be a way also. If you've got something really solid that you want to give away, and you can put the highlights of what, like, say you're thinking about doing a course, but you could put together a 1-page PDF that is like some of the key things and its value. The idea of a Facebook ad and going in and spending a few $100s, maybe a few thousand, spend a few hundred before you spend a few thousand, so if it works. But basically put a 3-inch ad in Facebook, basically, the 3 things to watch out for when X, and you create that PDF, and the PDF is an opt-in. That's how you start building a list. And of course, going on podcasts, public speaking, and, being on Zoom, is great. I mean, I'm speaking Thursday night at this event that I spoke to live in January, and now they're doing it online. Actually, online, I'm going to be speaking probably to, 4 times the audience, you know?
Cool.
So maybe I'll get, maybe I'll get 15, 20 people to opt into my list. I did a podcast that was also a Facebook Live. It was definitely my audience. And I got like, 20, 25 people. Some bought my book to get on my list, which is only $17, and you get great bonuses. But some just went on my list because of that. So, the idea is it's a slow build, but then you got that audience that you can write to every week, and then do what you teach, which is content marketing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best place to start. So, you have to, and then you have to assess your assets, not only in terms of names and lists and where you can get names in, but you also have to assess your content, what you have. You probably have, if you're thinking about starting a business in something, you've got to have a reason. You got to have some content or content from people you've learned from. And, you can borrow content, get permission to give away content.
Yeah.
But if you have content and you have lists, that's where you start. But you have to work at it, and it takes a long time.
Yes. Love it. So let's speak a little bit about your book. So the title of your book is Overdeliver. It's
not a word, by the way. Overdeliver as one word is not a word. It's either hyphenated or two words. So when I that's why I chose it, because I can't trademark it, but it was a powerful title, because it still gets spell checked every time I write it.
Okay, it sounds like you're proud of it.
I am, and I'm proud of the idea of over-delivery, because it's what I've done in my life. Now, there are, in chapter 1, I talk about the dangers of over-delivery, which is, high expectation when you over-deliver, and then the next time,
benchmark.
Right. So I'm okay with that, though. I mean, in most cases, people will forgive you if you over-deliver to here, and next time you over-deliver to here, because then you'll come up with something else and you'll over-deliver to here again. So you just don't under-deliver, and don't just give out crap. And so, and some people will tell you, that if you over-deliver here, next time you over-deliver here, and they say not good enough and they leave you, so be it. I mean, but the other side of that is to always over-deliver, and not just in content and gifts and all of that. You want to over-deliver of yourself. That's the idea of being utilized, enhancing people, appreciating people, referring people. If you that's over-delivering. And so, anybody in my masterminds, whether they're in the low-end mastermind or the high-end mastermind, anytime they ask me for something, I will figure out a way within reason to over-deliver. Someone posted in the Facebook group for my low-end mastermind. I say low-end, they're fantastic marketers, but it's just lower priced. And so they post in the Facebook group, they posted a book that I sold at Boardroom, my old company, and they said, who wrote the package for this? And I said, I told him who it was, and then he said, wow, I wish I could get a hold of that. I happen to have a copy of it, and so I said, send me an email, and now I'm going to send him, the copy of that. So that's over delivery, because that's not one of the bonuses or benefits of being in the group. But if you can do it, why not? And so that's why, and then at overdeliverbook.com, which is the site, my resource site for the book, that's where I'm so proud, because that's where I've developed thousands of dollars, some of them priceless. I have PDFs of books that are out of print. And so I developed a site that honors all of my mentors, and dead and alive. So some of them are dead, some of them are alive. There's Dan Kennedy and Perry Marshall and Gordon Grossman and Dick Benson, who are direct mail gurus. There's Gary Bensavenga, best copywriter alive today. So I have all of these bonuses, Jay Abraham, and it's like an over-deliver. If you title a book Over-Deliver, you got to over-deliver on the bonuses.
Yeah, so you did this. But I asked myself, okay, if you want to reverse engineer this thing, so you have this landing page where you give these bonuses away. So how did you created this? So you're giving away material from Dan Kennedy. Is it just that you asked for permission, or
yes,
how
I did. I did.
Okay.
I didn't give anything away that I didn't ask for. I don't have the right. So but the thing is, I've had 40 years of what I've talked about. So I've done this for 40 years. So I have not had, I mean, I had, unfortunately, I came up with like 500 people to acknowledge in my acknowledgement section, because I've had relationships with so many people over 40 years, but I've gone deep with so many of them. It's not just having, you know, all of these people in my life, which is wonderful, but I've tried to go as deep as possible with as many as possible. And that takes a lot of time and effort, but I've had time. I've had 40 years.
When you say deep, what exactly do you mean? Project that you worked on, or what
In some cases, yeah. Some cases it was a project. Some cases it was, you know, more than just a Facebook, accepting a Facebook or a LinkedIn. You know, it was like, this guy or this woman is somebody I really want to know. And you set up a call, and now you set up a Zoom call. You know, and they approach me, and some people I don't, you know, I don't say yes to everybody, but I say yes to a lot of people because they seem to be worth going deep with. And if I only go this deep and I stop because they're not as interesting as I thought, that's fine. But I got more than I would have if I didn't make the attempt. It's like, you know, if you don't start a conversation in an elevator with people, you're never going to get anything out of that ride. Okay. If you start a conversation, it may be a waste, and you meet them for that 2 minutes, but you never know. You never know.
Just give it a try.
Exactly.
Like it.
But getting the material was easy.
So you know all of them. So okay.
Yeah.
That makes,
I mean, it wasn't like just rip off everybody and put it on. And the site is amazing. You go to overdeliverbook.com. You go there and it tells you it's 3 steps. You go from that site and go buy the book anywhere you want. Amazon, Barnes and Noble. There's also Amazon Europe, all of that. And then you come back to the site and you put your order number in and your name, and you get on my list, which is one of the things you become part of my online family. And then you get access to all of these amazing bonuses, and I over-delivered on the bonuses, and the book's $17.
Yes, that's just amazing. So I will include the link into the show notes so that people.
Yeah, and if they don't want to spend $17, all they have to do is go to briankurtz.net, and they can there's a lot of free content. All of my blogs going back 6 years are on there. I'm giving away a lot of content for free on there. So and then they'll also be part of my family, and they'll get to read my stuff, and they'll get a welcome series to my blog. And I say I don't do affiliates. Anytime I sell something of someone else's and there's a commission, I give the commission to charity. I'm very upfront about all of that. Okay,
cool. So I have so many more questions, but we're running a little bit out of time. So maybe this one. You mentioned 7 characteristics that world-class copywriter have. Can you mention one? Maybe your most favorite one?
Well, it's probably insatiable curiosity, which is number 2. I'll just list them and then maybe people will buy the book because they're really detailed in the book. But the 7 characteristics that were present in every great copywriter I ever worked with. 7 characteristics: hunger, putting in the hours, really wanting to be a copywriter. 2, insatiable curiosity, going a mile deep versus a mile wide. 3, feedback loops, be able to run your copy against somebody after you write it yourself. You can't write copy by committee, but once you write it, you want to bounce it off people who are really skilled. Yes. 4 is passion. You got to have passion for what in the niche that you're writing in. 5 is direct marketing knowledge. You know, you got to know about RFM. You got to know about lifetime value. You have to know about the 40-40-20 rule, which I outline in my book. That list is the most important before offer and creative. It's like copywriting and creative is the least important until it's not. And that's a tease for knowing some basics of direct marketing. 6 is humility. No matter how successful you are, there's someone better than you. There's someone worse than you. Yes. Be humble. And then 7 is, basically be able to show your work with pride. Because usually that's the first thing a copywriter does. They show their portfolio. I put it number 7 of 7. You got to have You got to have the hunger, the curiosity, the feedback loops, the passion, direct marketing knowledge, and humility, and then you show your stuff.
Is it a hierarchy? So is it number one is the most important thing, or
no? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I just that's the way they came to me as I thought about it. But I'd say it's not the most important. It's a package. Like every one of those was evident in spades with all of the great copywriters, and actually they apply to all great marketers too.
Mm-hmm.
Like
cool.
The best marketers have those 7 characteristics as well.
Yeah, like it. Cool. So I will include it to the show notes, the link. And my last question: who would you recommend for my podcast? So somebody who would be a good fit.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that. I mean, anybody could be a good fit. I mean, I don't know if, Ben Settle or Doberman Dan, people who are big on content, they have print newsletters as part of their model. So I think those 2 would be excellent.
If you think it's a good fit, then
yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, cool. Good.
Okay, so, Jakob. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and best of luck.
Yeah, I thank you for your time. I think it was very valuable, and I learned many valuable things also for my own content creation. Yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome, Jakob. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.